Okay. We are here. I'm gonna just do like an intro and we're gonna see what happens. If we need, hopefully we don't need to re-record anything, but if we do, I will let you know. Hi everyone, my name is Mariel Reyes Galvez, but I do go by Mari. I have she, they pronouns because I am a feminine, non-binary human being on this planet. And I am here with Yusura. Is that how you pronounce your name?
Yeah. I also say Yusura. It's
Yusura.
Yeah.
Awesome. That is probably something I should have asked right before we got started recording. But here we are. Yeah, and we're doing this podcast for Mama Bird Interviews, documenting the journey that you all have been on for the last 3 years, which I didn't realize how long it was. So that is like right before 2020. That's right before the pandemic. Dr. Clark is very insane for embarking on the journey that he has, but he has so much passion and drive and admiration for the people within his organization that it just makes sense to run it the way that he does. However, it may make sense to myself and yourself, Yusara, but it might not make sense to everyone else. So can you tell me a little bit about what Mama Bird Interviews is and how you came to be a part of this org with Dr. Clark?
Yeah. So I know Dr. Clark because he was my film teacher in middle school, and then he continues to be a film teacher for like 3 years. So that's how we were connected, and he decided to, launch Mama Bird my senior year of high school, which, when the pandemic happened, 2020. And at first, I also didn't get it because even though storytelling is very big and important to me, I just didn't understand why would anyone want, those videos recorded. And then when I started doing those interviews, let me just like the interviews for Mama Bird focus on highlighting stories of not just your elders, but of yourself in that moment of what you believe in, what you like, what you don't like your favorite memories. And as I got older, like these last few years, interviewing all these different people, I realized like, wow, this would have been amazing if I started interviewing my parents and their stories. But something that's been in the back of my mind is like, especially with the immigrants who've moved here, I thought about how many stories are being lost, when you come to America, and then your children are being raised here, and your children sometimes don't necessarily know you or your story or what you've been through. And then all those stories are like lost, these immigrants' parents. And that's what generally happens. It's like you live this big, amazing life, and then you have no like record of it. I know people like leave things behind, but like having an actual video of you telling your own story, like you're the one who's telling it, you're the one who's dictating who gets to know what, and what you get to share. So that's what Mama Bird is kind of in a gist. It's just being able to have the power to tell your own story in the way that feels comfortable to you, and that you can share with anyone whenever. And again, you just have to be like when you're at the end of your life, you can do it at whenever time. You could be in high school and you want to like, hey, this is who I was in high school and I want to capture this. Yeah.
Definitely. There's a power in hearing somebody's voice and watching their mannerisms on video. Even if they're not super comfortable with the camera, I think once you actually get them talking, like that's a completely different thing. Could you elaborate a little bit on like the kinds of experiences that you've had, because like you said, like the Mama Bird does like end of life interviews. I know recently they've done graduation interviews, they do like sibling talks. What kind of things have you seen that have impacted you the most through these interviews?
I interview all different types of people, and one of the main questions we get is like, how do you connect to people that are so different from you? And I believe you can connect and learn from anyone you're with. So what's impacted me the most is just hearing all these different like life lessons, even from like very young people. I've done like graduation interviews, and then like very old people. I've actually experienced one of my clients passed away when we were supposed to interview like our second half of the interview, and he wasn't able to be there because he passed. But those moments and like listening to those stories and hearing all these different people's life lessons, I think also kind of impacted the way I've been living my life. And again, I think we talked about it before we started, like how I'm kind of a workaholic, and that kind of changed with Mama Bird because of like, talking to these older people, and they're like, you know, you're not living to work. You're like their own reflections and their own lives. And I'm like, do I actually want to go the same path with working and constantly like draining myself and being in this like constant state of anxiety because of the choices I've made? So like just listening to these people and listening to their own lessons, like of course when they're telling the stories, they're not thinking about how it will impact me, but it does impact the interviewer themselves.
Definitely. So we've talked about the impact of interviewing other people. What about so Dr. Clark talks a lot about the importance of the kind of people that he hires, and that is, women of color who he believes in, who he sees as the future of the nation, of the future of the world. That is a very bold statement, and it's a beautiful one at that. You know what I mean? So what has your relationship with Dr. Clark been like? I know he was your teacher in the past, but like sometimes when we're in school, teachers are just teachers. What makes your relationship with Dr. Clark any different?
Dr. Clark goes above and beyond to at least for our team. He seeks out his student. He seeks to help them out in any way that he possibly can. I know when we first started taking our pictures for Mama Bird for our cards, he hired a previous student he had in his photography class. So he's always finding ways to contribute students and young people and women into the business. And that's because he truly cares about us. He worked here at Montbello High School, where he was, the majority of us are either brown or Black students. And that's what I think. I've had many close relationships with teachers, but what keeps my relationship with Dr. Clark going is his ability to check up on people. And again, going above and beyond, our partnership with, I'm gonna butcher it. We have a partnership with the Trauma and Resilience Center. And from there, we all have free therapy. And he worked really hard to just get all these different people to make sure that we are okay, because he just goes above and beyond, and that's what I think keeps my relationship with Clark going forward, is because his ability to like check up on me, making sure I'm okay. And then also I just recently have been able to like drive, but before, like, I really couldn't go anywhere because I can't drive and then have strict parents, so transportation is like scary to my parents. But Clark would come and pick me up and take me to these events to make sure that I was there and that I was able to like make the most of these opportunities. So that's the type of person Clark is going above and beyond for his students. And in return, he hardly ever gets anything in return. He's not like getting some sort of like monetary income from this. He's given so much of his own money to this. So that's what that dynamic is. It's just someone who's trying to make sure that his team is, the best it could be.
So he was your teacher in middle school, right? From what I understand. You are how old now?
Today's my birthday. I'm 20.
Happy birthday.
I had to like, yeah, I'm 20. 20
Oh my
years.
God.
Yeah.
Very happy birthday.
Yeah.
Very, very happy birthday. Congratulations. I am 22 years old. I remember turning 20 and I was like, oh my God. Oh my God. Like my 20s are finally here. So congratulations. And what a way to start your 20s with like some reflection. So now that it's your birthday, I have a few questions that like I really like to ask people on their birthdays. Number one, like, what would you tell yourself 5 years ago? So 15-year-old Yusura.
I'll tell her it's okay. I think, again, 15-year-old me took life too seriously. I was constantly like planning every single step of my life. And I think she'd freak out if I told her like right now, I have no idea what I'm gonna do next. Like I have no like 5-year plan. I'm just like whatever happens at this point. And I think COVID kind of impacted because with COVID, I was like, I had every single thing, like I'm going to do senior year, when I'm going to go to college, all these things. And then all of a sudden this big thing happens. And then it's like all these plans that you've made, they no longer matter. So I will tell my 15-year-old self to like have some fun and to like let go. And that it's like okay to smile once in a while. Like it's okay to be a child. I like 15-year-old me believed she was an adult, but she's just a child. That's what I tell her, like you're a child. Like it's okay.
And what where do you hope? I know we talked about like not having a 5-year plan, but what is a hope you have for 25-year-old Yusura?
Um, I hope I have for 25-year-old Sarah is that she has boundaries. I currently really struggle with boundaries and letting people like what I'm at a job that I really don't want to be at. Not with Wild Birds, like an actually like 9 to 5 type of job. But I'm like, but I want to be considerate because they only have like a little bit of staff, and I'm just like, no, you're miserable. Like leave. And sometimes you don't even have to have a good reason to leave. If you don't want to be there, you don't want to be there. So I hope 25-year-old me like actually starts to respect know her own boundaries and realize that it's okay to be the enemy. It's okay for people not to like you. So I hope that like that kind of like finally hits me in the head and like, yeah, it's okay that only if I have only a few good people who like me. Like I don't need the whole world to like me.
Definitely. That has been like the hardest thing to accept because I was very academically inclined in high school. I was very like straight A student, graduated with a 4.2, and I was like, top of my class. And I got to college and it just like kicked me in the face. I was like, oh, this was just like school was my hyper fixation at the time. And now that I'm in college and I'm just kind of shooting without aiming. Um, I had this conversation with my dad just last night because I landed in Denver last night and we had an hour-long ride to go drop off a friend, and we talked about college and what my next steps were, and I was like, well, dad, like I'm at a job that I really enjoy. Like I don't have a degree, but I'm an educator. I'm in the classroom. I'm teaching kids to code. I'm teaching them to stream. I'm teaching them to do podcasting. Like I'm right where I'm supposed to be. And like that came without a degree. And I don't know if I'm going to go back. And if I do go back, I need to go back for something that I'm truly passionate about. Cause I just kind of went to college without an end goal. I was just like, I'm gonna go to college because everybody else is going to college because we need to go to college, right? Like, and because my parents give me the immigrant talk of like, I came to this country and sacrificed so much for you. And I don't doubt that you had a similar experience. I think as a daughter of immigrants, we have that on our shoulders all the time, is that our parents came to a foreign country not knowing the language, not having any money, having nothing with just the clothes on their back. And now we're supposed to be great. And greatness looks different in everyone's eyes. And then you come to this country where like it's all about individualism.
Yeah.
And so that battles with the family unit that you're so used to in immigrant families. Can you talk a little bit about, if you're comfortable, can you talk a little bit about what your dynamic has been with being a child of immigrant parents?
Yeah, that's something I've been like really reflecting a lot on because I've realized how much it's actually impacted me as a person. It's like living in these two different cultures. I was talking to one of my mentors and who was asking me like, "Who are you?" And I'm just like, that's hard for me to answer because in America, like it's about individualism and who you are as an individual. But I'm like, I see myself as a collective person. I see myself as someone connected to all these other people. And that's how I view me. And he's like, and that is who you are. You don't have to pinpoint who you are as just a one person, one dimensional being. So when I think of myself, I think of the collectiveness of it all because of being an immigrant child. And my family, it's all about like I'm 20 years old, I'm still living with my parents, and that's because that's how my culture is. We stick together, and no matter how hard it is, it's just like everyone together instead of you against the world type of deal. Um, College wasn't actually an expectation for me, and that's because my parents kind of have strict gender roles. So it's like my brothers, they were expected, my big brothers were expected to like do all these things, but for me, it was more about like, as long as you can cook and clean, like you're good. And like, you know, just like being a good woman, that was like the whole thing, and I've been struggling with that a lot. And I had to like work twice as hard to make sure my parents saw me more than just, you know, the constraints of gender. Like I'm more than just a good woman. Like I want them to see me more in an academic way. And that's why I think my super fixation, if I wanted to prove people wrong, I was like, I'm gonna, you know, I'm going to finish high school, I'm going to get this degree. And I'm actually gonna graduate in 5 weeks. I like, that's how much of a workaholic I am. I'm graduating 2 years early with my bachelor's degree. So that was, and again, one of the reasons I'm graduating early is because I can't, I just can't, I can't see myself doing 2 more years of school. I just mentally, I can't do it. And yeah, that changed a lot. Like entering college was like a big like punch in the face. I was like, this isn't for me. But I forced myself through it, and I kind of, parts of me is like, yay, I'm done, but parts of me is like, like at what cost, you know? But yeah, being a daughter of an immigrant child, yeah, that pressure of trying to please everyone to make sure everyone's okay. And it's like so hard for me to like argue with my parents or do anything with my friends, because I also think of like the trauma they've been through. And my parents were actually refugees, so like they had to escape like a Somali war. They had to escape all these different things, watch people get killed, come to this country where like no one understands them, no one, you know, helps them out. Like it's super hard. And then I'm like, I don't want to be a burden. Like I don't want to, you know, add flame to the fire. But then recently I've learned like it's not my responsibility to not be a burden for people. Like it's not my responsibility to try to like minimize myself so that way life is easier. Like even if I try to do that, my parents, you know, they're still going to struggle. It's not like me changing and altering my life is going to like make my parents' life 10 times better. And also learning to, like they want to see me happy too. So like they don't want to see their daughter constantly miserable. And that's something I've noticed. Like my parents don't want me to like force myself to be this certain person if it doesn't fit me. So that's what I've learned from the past couple of years. It's like these tough like things about like being an immigrant and being a daughter and being a woman and growing up. It's really hard for like an immigrant child to like grow up into like, especially if you're in a whole different culture, because how my mom was raised is so different from how I was raised. She was raised by her grandma. It was like just siblings raising siblings, grandmas raising children, aunties raising nieces and nephews. And then you're just kind of expected, you know, you grow up, get married, and do your home. So my parents can't really help me out with college. Like the FAFSA, I had to figure that on my own. Like everything, you just kind of tried to like error and trial. And now I'm like realizing like why I'm slowly realizing what I do actually like and what I don't actually like. And even though I am academically inclined, it doesn't mean I have to do it, you know? Just because I'm like good at grading good grades, that doesn't mean I'll just continue going to school. So at this moment, I'm just like, I just want to find a place where I'm like not constantly stressed or miserable, and where I can like bring in all my different passions and work with it. Which is difficult to find, but you know, I believe I will find it somewhere. And I'm okay with not using my degree. I'm pretty sure my degree is not going to be useful to me. I'm an anthropology major, and that's because it focused on people and learning about people, and that's what I love. So I learned about everybody's different cultures, and I learned about like racial injustices and reproductive issues. And I forgot what word. My mentor said advocacy. That's where most of my main concentration has to be, like advocacy work, like justice work, and that's probably where I'm gonna end up at. I'm not gonna be an anthropologist, but the purpose for me to go to college was just, it was like my thing, my accomplishment, and that's the only reason I was really there. It was like, out of all things, this is something I choose to do, and that's all that matters. So that's why if someone looks at my degree, it's like, you're an anthropology major, it's like, it's not about the degree, but it's about like the reason behind it. At least for me, it is. Yeah.
And you gain so many skills from having a degree, from having a bachelor's degree, right? Like, um, I dropped out, and I'm not trying to knock on like people, obviously, like you rush through it. Everybody handles it very differently, but you learn a lot about deadlines. You know, professors are rich in knowledge and they pass that down to you. And like, academics is not for everyone, right? And like, how many stories have we heard of so many people who don't use their degrees? We're like, I went to college to go to college to get a degree, to get a title, and then it's just like, meh, we'll see what happens, right? That is valid. It's valid, and it's a truth for the majority of people in America who go and get bachelor's degrees. Um, and so I'm hearing you say all of these things. And then I remember that we are associated with Mama Bird. So, how much of your journey have you documented being at Mama Bird? Is that some? Is that none?
Um, I know in the beginning of Mama Bird, we did interviews with each other, and there's like, of course, like written documents where we like reflect on our interviews, and when we had like team meetings, and those are recorded. Um, and yeah, those are some of the ones that are documented. And I wish I did more documentation, but you know, being burnt out, I was like been burnt out for the past 2 years. It's like hard to like do much. But yeah, I'm glad that like Clark made us like sit down and like talk to each other about what we're learning, or even after interviews, like record voice memos or to like write down things like what we learned. Those things are very important, I believe. Yeah.
That's beautiful, because you get to look back on those things years later now, and like, that's why I'm so excited to be doing this, because like, I can see it already, that like I'll be going back to those interviews, because Clark has his huge archive of like things, and then get to put in clips of you talking to yourself now. You know what I mean? Like, um, so I'm also wondering, like, what is the impact of Mama Board been in your life? Like, it sounds vastly different than anthro. It does have to do with people, right? But it's vastly different from anthropology, like the actual focus. And I know at least my immigrant parents are like, right now, they're like, what are you doing? Like, what is this media job that you have? What the heck is Mama Bird? What the heck is Yabo? And why are you, like, you just sit at a computer all day and that's what you do, and you just like record people with a camera? And like, it's so hard to explain the depths of what I'm doing, because there's so much impact behind home videos, right? Like, even we have so much home video footage from when I was little, because my dad would walk around with like a huge VHS camera all the time. And so I argue with him all the time. I'm like, I got it from you. Like, you taught me this. You're the reason why I have this passion. So, how has Mama Bird impacted your life? And has there been any like struggle with like your immigrant parents understanding? 'Cause I know mine have.
Yeah. My parents think I'm a YouTuber, but I'm not. Like they tell everyone, "Oh, Yusura, she does YouTube," and I'm like, "No, that's not what I do." But my parents are convinced that I'm a YouTuber, so I'm just like I don't know. As you said, like I don't know how to explain it to them, like what I'm doing. But yeah, they think I'm a YouTuber, and like they sometimes pull up the Mama Bird YouTube channel to show people to like, do you see this? Like, look at my daughter, she's a YouTuber. I'm not a YouTuber. But that's what my parents think. Like they also have a hard time. My parents still don't know my major. I tell them like multiple times like what my major is, and they're like, "What is that?" And I'm like, "I want to help people," and they're like, "Oh, so do you want to do business?" And I'm like, "Mm-mm." But they do accept Mama Bird because they believe in entrepreneurship. My dad was a businessman back in Kenya and Somalia. He was a tradesman, so he's like really into like, hey, this will help you like learn how to like build a business, how to like interact with people, all these important skills. So they're like very open and accepting of like Dr. Clark. They know him. They know about Mama Bird, and they're I think Mama Bird contributed to them being more open about me also being more out into the world, because Mama Bird kind of forced me to like go out of my room and out of my house and go to these different spaces. And my parents slowly were like, oh, okay, you can do that. So that's one way it's like impacted me. And then another way is like meeting all these people. At my current job, I'm I help students get connected to resources, and currently we are planning a conference. And for that conference, like we need to like recruit a lot of people, recruit a lot of speakers, and most of the people that my boss talks to, and I'm like, I already know that person. Like I met that person through Mama, like, or I interviewed them, or we were in a meeting with that person. So like these social skills that I've developed, it was like so hard for me in high school that I was like, oh my gosh, talking to people is so scary. It's actually can be used for my current job because I'm like, I already know you, so this is like easy for me to do. And it made me just realize the importance of connections even more. Like it's so important to be connected. And I think that's what's going to get me far, is not my degree but my connections, like just like knowing people. And also I realized I like connecting people to things. Like when I find a job ad that I think my friends will like, I like send it to them like, hey, you should do this. Or there's an opportunity that I can't do, I'll find someone else to do it. And that's how I kind of got involved with my job, is just connecting students to different things. I'm like, you can do this, or if you want to do this, or you can do this kind of program. So yeah, that's where I think I'm gonna go, is just somehow a job that helps me connect people or teach people. But Mama Bird has really influenced like me being able to like narrow down of like, this is what I like, this is what I don't like. Um, and again, with the biggest struggle was talking to people. I was so scared. I was like, I don't know if I want to do this. I don't know if I want to like sit in front of a camera and talk to people. And like, I don't know these people and they don't know me. And I have to like share my story. And like, why do I have to share my story? Or it was just all these things. That was in the beginning, it was just like 18-year-old me is like, I can't do this. This isn't for me. But I'm glad I pushed myself to continue. And yeah, I'm more comfortable with just speaking to people. And yeah.
It's strange, right? Because you have to ask people these like really personal questions and you just got to know them, you know what I mean? But like
Okay.
once you lay out that common ground, it's just such smooth sailing from there.
Yeah.
um when you approach an interview, and I'm sure the process has evolved because you said that you're very shy and nervous at 18 to now, like I feel like if I saw you sit down and do an interview, I'd be like, oh yeah, that's exactly how it's done. How do you approach something like that now versus when you first started?
Um, when I first started, it like took over. I don't know. I would think about it like a week before, days before. It was just to be constantly in my mind, like, oh my gosh, I have to do this. So like because I wanted to be like prepared, like in every single way, in every single manner. And now to be honest, I can like wake up, roll out of bed, pull out like my questions, like set up the camera and like do the interview, and then after just move on with my life. Before it was like literally just constant preparations, like mentally, like, okay, I'm talking to this person, I need to do this and that. But now it's like, I'm like, literally, you're talking to a person, it's a conversation. It doesn't have to be so rigid or so structured or so, you know, like you want to make the person comfortable. And some people you don't want to be, you don't want to feel like you're at a job interview, like there's right or wrong questions. So something I've noticed is like, okay, if I'm going to talk to someone, I don't want that person to be like, so I don't know. I don't want to be feel like I'm being interrogated. Like I want to have fun. And we want Mama Bird interviews to be like a wonderful time. And most people, of course, they want to talk about good things, and that's something I've noticed too. It's like with my questions, I've also developed. Now it's like, okay, let's remove all the like, what's your regrets or what's like your worst things, because like some people don't want to talk about that. So now I'm like, giving the people those options of to choose what they want to talk about, what they don't want to talk about, and also recognizing that nobody owes me their story, nobody owes me like anything that they don't want to share with me. And we know that too. We know that like no one owes us anything, and we try to make people as comfortable as possible. But it's like also like being aware that in the future someone else may be watching this, and you don't owe your children or your parents or your siblings, like you don't owe them any answers or anything that you don't want to share. You don't have to give, your whole biography. And some people are comfortable with that. Some people, they want you to know everything. They want their kids to know everything. They want their, their parents, their siblings to know everything. And I've just grown to kind of respect that and not push it. And also being aware sometimes of when someone can't verbally communicate to you that they don't want to, do it. And just like being able to change it. But some people look at let you know, like, hey, I don't want to talk about that. But some people you can like tell they don't want to talk about it, but they're like, oh, I paid for this, so might as well. But yeah, you don't owe anyone anything. As an interviewer and as an interviewee, you share what you feel like because it's your story.
That's so real. Like, yeah, nobody owes you their story, and we base our entire like organization off of stories. So how do you genuinely connect with a human being virtually, right? Just like you and I are doing right now. Like, you don't owe me your story, you don't owe me your explanation as to why you got like your BA within 2 years. You don't owe me any of that. And you believe in the mama bird mission enough to like be as open and honest with you are with a perfect stranger, like um that's a completely beautiful thing, and also why I believe that Dan Clark operates in the way that he does. Dr. Clark brings in people like you and I, young women of color in leadership, um, who we're all doing amazing things, right? I don't think I've seen anyone who's just like, I'm just doing whatever, right? And even then, that's still amazing, because as people of color, we deserve liberation. We deserve to reach our fullest potential. And if my fullest potential is like frolicking in the grass somewhere, I deserve that. You know what I mean? Like, so what do you feel like what do you feel like it looks like, or what does it look like for you, for marginalized people, specifically yourself and like the group that you identify with, to reach their fullest potential? What does that look like?
Um, I feel like your fullest potential shouldn't be miserable, and your fullest potential shouldn't be someone else's potential. I think for the most part, I've always looked at other people and what they've done or accomplished and tried to be them or tried to replicate that. And in a way, I've kind of missed out on who I am and my ability. And it's hard for me to sometimes admit that I mentally and physically can't work 24 hours a day like I told myself I could. Like I told myself I could work, do school, internship, and at some point I was doing that. I was like volunteering, doing 2 jobs, doing 21 credits at school, and I'm just like, there's people who can do that, but those people are not me. And it even though and this is my thing I'm starting to learn, like just because you can do it, that doesn't mean you should do it. It doesn't mean that is your fullest potential. I don't think your fullest, like your, like as you said, like your best potential, it doesn't mean being like the super active, involved person who's, doing 100 different things. That doesn't have to be your best potential. I think that your best you, your best version of you is the you that can actually operate and that could give your best. And if your best is just being able to provide for your family, then that is your best. Because when I was doing all those like 100 different things, I wasn't able to actually be good in anything I was doing. Like I was struggling with like keeping up with my assignments. I was struggling with volunteering. I was struggling with everything I was doing, because I wasn't being authentic to myself and being true to myself. And I think that's how marginalized groups can reach their potential, like their highest potential best self, by being authentic to themselves. I was listening to this podcast and I was like, you right now in this moment, that is your best self. And your best self and your highest potential always changes and varies based on where you are in life. And I keep comparing myself to high school me, because I was like, high school me was so productive and she was doing all these things and she was so smart and she was this and that. But I'm like, but I'm not her anymore. And that worked for her and she was like happy doing that. But that doesn't make me happy now. Like her dreams and her goals and her activities, that was my best me then. But my best me now I won't be the best me now if I try to operate in the same mindset as she does, if that makes sense. I think just being authentic to yourself and admitting like what works for you and what doesn't allows you to be your highest you, allows you to be the best you if you're just true and honest to who you are. As you said, if that means being out in the park rolling the grass and that's the highest potential you, the best you, then let it be, you know? Like you don't have to like, and it goes back to what we're talking about. Like you don't have to prove yourself to anyone. You don't have to like, I think we're kind of like forced to like be better, you know, 10 times better than everyone, like work 10 times harder than everyone is like, and you don't have to. And that doesn't make you less than anyone. Not having a degree doesn't make you less than anyone. Like not getting your PhD, not doing these things, that doesn't make you a less valuable human. That doesn't make you a less better you, if that makes sense. Yeah.
1,000%. I was vibing with that the entire time because I do that too. I compare myself to high school me all the time because she was so academic and I like play video games for a living. You know, like sometimes I sit here and I'm like, what am I doing? And I'm like, I have to take a step back and I'm like, you're producing, you are coding, you are, you know, like this is what you're doing and this is the best version. Because if I was doing anything else, I would be so miserable, you know, like I'm happy now. We're barely making it out, but I'm happy now. So I truly appreciate your answer to that question. I could vibe with it fully and completely. And I know probably many of the young women who work in this organization or who are connected to Dr. Clark feel it too. You know what I mean? And that's really why, like, I believe that he's bringing us together because we need these kind of support circles because how many times in your life have you felt alone in all of this or like there's nobody else who could possibly understand me until you know you come to an org like this and you're like, oh, I'm not the only one, you know, and that feels super duper nice. So given that it's your birthday today and that you've gotten 1 year, one more year around the sun, what is your advice for someone like you out in the world?
My advice is to take your time. There is no rush. I think maybe because being Gen Z and like the world literally feels like it's constantly falling apart and you feel this big urgency to just do everything and see it, you know, see everyone and be everywhere. And it's still scary for me to like think about slowing down and just kind of being in the present. But you know, you're not going to be young forever. Your body's not going to be young forever. Your mind, this time and availability that you have, you won't always have. Like at some point, I won't be able to just go like, yeah, let's go out right now. I'm like on the spot. So that's what I tell someone like me, like my little sisters. I tell them to slow down and to try to find like the little things. Growing up, I thought like I needed like money or something to have fun and to do things. And like everybody goes out, everybody does this and that. And I always try to rush things and try to like be better than everybody. But I'm like, it's not really a competition. I don't see it as a competition anymore. I used to see it a lot as a competition, maybe because in high school everybody's like competitive with GPAs and all these things. But now I'm just like I'm happy when I see someone else who looks like me succeed. I'm just like, good job. Like I know how hard that was for you. But that's what I tell someone, like slow down. Don't rush it. Like it's okay. You're going to get there eventually. And that's the main thing. Like you're going to get wherever you want to go at some point. And even though the world seems like it's falling apart, there's parts of it that is healing. And that's kind of part of healing is falling apart and failing. Yeah, that's what I tell young me.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I think that helps me a lot too, because I'm like, I should, there's a lot of graduations going on this month, last month, and I was like, damn, that could have been me if I stayed in school. But the matter of fact is that I didn't, you know what I mean? And like, I will get there when I need to get there. And right now it's not it because like I can't imagine doing school at the same time that I'm doing everything that I'm doing right now. and I'm not willing to sacrifice that. So that's really it. Those are all the questions I had for you. I truly, truly appreciate this conversation with you. You are a very beautiful human being, inside and out. You have, you radiate such positive energy, and I truly, truly appreciate that. And I appreciate the way that we've connected on this call. And I hope to do more of these podcasts in the future, because Mama Bird has an incredible team, number one, an incredible come up story, and just like such a pure vibe. Because I haven't seen any other media org, especially like with the ones that I have come head to head with. Nobody else is doing this. And that's insane to me, because I think more people should.
I agree. And thank you for, being such a great interviewer. Again, you asked loads of questions, and I'm really glad like you're on the team. I'm always glad that when we get new people. And I'm so also appreciative that, I know you talk about I'm helping out other children and students. I'm so appreciative, your voice is out there, like someone like you is out there teaching and helping. And again, even if it's, I don't know, I feel like we're moving away from non-conventional ways of doing things.
Yeah.
Like literally what you're doing, I think is awesome. Like
Thank
better
you so much.
than some people are doing with a degree. So
thank you so much. I truly, truly appreciate that, because I feel crazy most of the time, but it's all worth it.
I agree. So
all right. Bye, Yusura. Thank you so, so much for your time.